Make the motion that we approve the regular meeting minutes of November 29th.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make the motion we approve the consent agenda.
Second. Any further?
Just to note that I added on the sewer warrants that you sent over. Agenda was sent out, so they're on the I'll look it up. Updated agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public input. Nothing on Zoom?
There's 4 people, but I haven't
5:35-ish. Ben Dreyer, Underwood Engineers, West Swanzey Water Company study.
So then it's one of those 4 people on Zoom, I believe.
Hey guys.
You're
Hi,
on
Ben.
the agenda. You are, Marcy, you're on the agenda.
Yes.
A little after midnight, but you're on.
Keep your powder dry, save it for later. Hi Ben, so you're there?
I'm there. Yeah, I just making sure whether we're good to go or.
Yes, we are. So yeah, as I know the board's aware, and I think some of the people here are, the town had received a grant earlier this year to study the West Swanzey Water Company with a possible town acquisition. And that study's ongoing. I think you're gonna finalize it. You can give an update on where the study stands, not quite complete, but the main prompting of this meeting was to just give a brief status update and then also talk about a possible grant opportunity, which has a pretty quick timeline. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to discuss it with the board, see if that was something they were interested in us pursuing.
Yep. Okay, great. Yeah. So just quick status. I mean, Jameis and I have been working on the report. I just went through what I'll call a final draft today, some minor comments. We're going to get a internal QA/QC review in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to issue a draft, our plan toward the end of the month here in December. And it is going to be draft. There is one piece that we kind of want to just iron out a little further with the town, which would be just the details of governance. I know we've had that come up a couple times in our meeting, but maybe to explore that a little bit further. So it's outlined, but there could be some detail that would be added there. Otherwise, everything is in pretty good order there. And so just for context and, a little quick summary, going into talking about funding, the basics of the report is that the existing West Swanzey Water Company, overall the water source and the aquifer is good. But the existing system itself is, 1960s vintage. And it's just at a point where it needs to be updated to modern standards. And the other factor that we're finding is that the capacity for new connections or any sort of expansion is becoming limited by the lack of storage in the system. So there's a need for like a water storage tank. So in the report, we identify that and we've talked about it, but kind of the point of entry for the town to take over the system would include, purchasing the system itself and then improvements to construct a new pump house and a water storage tank. So that comes with a price tag of $6.3 million. So the other big piece of the report is what are the funding options available to get that 6.3 million into a more manageable number, and that balances out the rates, water rates to the users. So that's what we're talking about tonight. We do in the report, there'll be a funding package or a blend of funding that's possible, that will outline, which includes NHDES, Northern Borders Regional Commission, and USDA Rural Development. as we started to explore those, USDA Rural Development seems to have one of the better options for this type of project. And that's what we want to talk about tonight specifically. When we met with Rural Development, they were telling us that, the size of that project didn't bother them at all, that, they have plenty of resources to fund that level of project. And typically, they sometimes will offer up to 45% grant. So that's almost 50% grant. That's pretty substantial. And they also have a pre-planning grant. And so that's basically some startup grant money to write a report that's required as part of their overall application. So that's the near-term funding deadline. Mike kind of had mentioned it being on a short fuse. The deadline for that is on December 15th, so that's about 2 weeks away, a little under 2 weeks. So basically the components, we shared with Mike, it's pretty standard stuff. There's some basic forms, some of the town's financial data. There would be a draft engineering scope and contract. There'd be a narrative that goes along with that. So these are things that we would help the town put together. And basically, the report that we just are finishing up helps answer the question, for the town of, should we proceed with purchasing the West Swanzey Water Company, or is it going to be, a sustainable move for the town to go in that direction? This rural development report, they call it a preliminary engineering report, would more specifically answer the question of what is the project and how much is it going to cost, and gets more into some of the engineering details to support going to a full grant application, for the total project. So there's one piece of information that we're clearing up with RD that we need them to confirm, but basically they have 2 levels of planning grants. And the planning grant, there's one for I guess regular sized towns, and there's one for very small communities, 2,500 residents and less. When we talked to them, we were speaking in terms of the smaller grant, which they call a search grant, with the understanding that they have identified West Swanzey Village as a population center. And so it seemed like that it would be eligible, and we're just double checking that to make sure we file the right form. The biggest difference between the two is that if you go to the regular planning grant, the grant funds do require a match. So it's a 25-75%. RD puts in 75%, the town would put in 25. If it falls under the search grant, there's no match and it's all grant. Typical, I guess, fees or the cost for the report is typically around $30,000, but it would obviously go with a scope. We'd have to develop the scope specifically first to get the final number. So I think that's a summary. That's what we're talking about for the 15th, the submitting on.
Is it surge or search?
Search. The grant name?
Yeah.
Maybe Ben could tell those.
Yeah, I don't see either of those.
Ben, is it search or surge for the grant?
Search, CH.
SEAR. Thank you.
What's the value of the grant, Ben?
The grant is with rural development, and that's what they refer it to as is search, or the other one is PPG, which stands for pre-planning grant.
So the grant application that we would be authorizing now would be 30,000 for a study, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Roughly, yeah.
And then it could be up to between 45 and 75% of the 6.3 million down the road.
Yeah.
So the first step to go to then apply a year from now, if we're on that path for the actual funding, the acquisition of the upgrades.
And so if they determine that we're not eligible for the search grant, is it 30,000 for the other one as well?
Yeah, the pre-planning grant, PPG, or the search grant, they would both be in the ballpark of 30,000. And both of those are a step in the overall grant process for the $6.3 million project that we're talking about.
So is it the PPG that has a 25% match?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When would you be able to find out which one we're going for?
Well, we'd like to know in the next day. We were hoping it would be in time for this meeting. We were pretty, we reached out to RD a couple times, and that was the last piece that we just didn't get the info for from them. So, yeah, within the next day or two, because we need to also be putting everything together and getting it final.
Motion consensus is fine, I just didn't want to pull us together if it wasn't aligned with the broader priorities down the road.
Yeah, if we can get the search grant, that'd be great. PPG would work.
Yeah, I think that'd be a very appropriate use of a per unit grant, at least for the housing project in that area, because obviously that's, the water system is critical for that property, so. Not that it has to be a natural fit, I think that's obviously going to come there, but I think that'd be a reasonably useful use of the natural fit.
Great.
Consensus? Okay. Anything else you wanted to add on the just overall study, Ben? I know we talked about probably February for the next step for the public.
Yeah, that's good. I can schedule an overall a little bit too. So I think the wrap up on the current study, we would do a Selectmen's presentation. So we're talking about doing that in February. And that would also, we could line that up so that I think it comes in near the time frame when the awards are made, or at least there's applicants are notified of funding on the RD search or PPG grants. And so they do have a requirement that once you are notified, if you're going to accept their funds, that you do have to have a public meeting to notify the public that you're going to be moving forward. So I think it could work out to combine those two together. And I was going to say too, on the overall schedule, this if that's the way it played out, it allows us to then work on the preliminary engineering report through next year, and also start looking at the other funding sources that are available, which probably the other most likely big one is Northern Borders Regional Commission. Both of the RD and NBRC programs give scoring or credit for projects that help with economic development, where DS programs are not as, that you won't get points for in that area. So I think we're seeing those line up better, and they have, I think, better grant offerings. So in any case, by next fall would be the time to submit for the full grant. And then that kind of lays out the schedule of town meeting 2025, design construction 25, 26, which is what we had talked about kind of starting off when we kicked off the project.
Your $6.3 million estimate, is that building out to an elevated tank? And
Yes,
how much
that
of
would
it
include
is in services, do you think? I think, what are we at, 90 now for connections?
Yeah, I had between 80 and 90, totaling 200 customers altogether.
Right.
Yeah.
So
What was the second part of your?
do you envision that this is going to double the size of the system as far as connections, or?
Potentially, that's a hard number to really estimate accurately. There is potential that you're going to add folks because you're going to extend the route, so
Right.
I think you're getting at, we're going to have an elevated storage tank that's so far away from the current system, and that creates opportunities for people to connect. So we did run some numbers preliminarily, but it's guesses. But the more of those folks that came online, that would also improve, the rates as well. I think that's what you're thinking about.
I
Thank
think
you.
the 6.3 could be phased and spread over time too. That didn't all have to happen at once, correct?
No, I think that wants to happen all at once because you can't do anything really with the system until those are kind of the minimum improvements that we would recommend. So there's not really a benefit to waiting. And I guess, maybe they would happen sequentially or something, but all within the same relative time frame. Yeah, because that was like the minimum for the town to have a turnkey operation that's like up and running and sustainable.
Ben, with the recent legislation regarding lead in water pipes, do we know if this system is eligible for any of the funding that would come through for that?
Yep. Mike had asked me a little bit about that, and as I understand it, I think what was part of that legislation or the piece of that NHDS, did some work on too was lining up consultants to help towns with lead services. And so the way that shakes out, there's 3 or 4 consultants. Underwood is one of them, but we're doing the medium-sized system. So all the systems in Swanzey are small, and they've been assigned to Hazen. So it's a different consultant. But in any case, they're going to be working with West Swanzey Water Company, and they have over the next year, there's a deadline in October 2024 for them to inventory and identify all the potential lead services in the system. So that's the first step. So they will be getting assistance for that, and then that might start lining up with the time frame when the town could be looking at it. So at least you would either know if there are any, or at least the unknowns would be identified, and there would be a plan in place on how to get those resolved or find out for sure, confirm if they are. So then I think, and I think there is DES funding for then going after and swapping out lead services. So whether it would either be resolved by the time the town was ready to, purchase, or at least there would be a plan in place and funding mechanism.
So if we went through the process, do they to purchase the system, do they coordinate with you and you take it over, or how?
Yeah, I think we could navigate it at that point. Or if they had a contract in place or something to, maybe they would finish where they were, but that I would imagine that would be worked out as part of those negotiations and purchasing the system.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Ben.
Sure thing.
We leave old business later, but did we want to, have some folks here from
On water level?
jump to that? Sure.
Mike, I'm going to sign off. You guys are all good?
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Bye, Ben.
Is Joe coming or no?
He is not, but Joe Bill's supposed to, as did I, but
Yes, did I?
that's a slide, okay.
I even went and looked at
He
it.
even did a site
I
inspection.
did. I don't know what the boards look like, which I have no idea. A lot of water flowing through there.
There's a lot of water flowing over the dam on Upper Wilson Pond. So I don't know if the Army Corps of Engineers is lowering their water level at a higher
It's
rate
coming from
than
somewhere,
right? I mean, they might be trying to get their water level down too. So, but you want to go with his letter? Or?
Yeah, I made some modifications. Bill brought up a good point about the dam boards versus the water level, which are related but different. So I have an updated version here. So I'm going to just read this.
Sure.
So I have a letter to you here, Marcy, since you are the spokesperson, which I'll sign and give to you after. But in response to your inquiry at the November 29th Board of Selectmen meeting, I followed up with the Director of Public Works regarding the Wilson Pond water level. He indicated that Lower Wilson Pond Dam has been at the normal winter board placement, which consists of one board with a trash rack still in place since around October 15th in accordance with town policy. Removing the final board would result in the water level being too low, and there would be no way to prevent debris from clogging up the dam. Regardless of what the board level at Lower Wilson Pond is, the pond water level of the pond, I didn't catch that one, will vary depending on how much water is flowing down from upstream, primarily from the Army Corps of Engineers dam in Roxbury. Residents may want to consider removing their docks or adding bubblers to prevent the ice from freezing around them. In addition to dock owners' interests, the town has also received complaints from New Hampshire Fish and Game and other concerned citizens about the water level being too low. Further, the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services does not recommend removing additional boards.
The other piece that Joe told me is that the water level now is 26 inches down, and the lowest it could go would be 30 inches. That came from DES. He did say that there was a rather scathing letter that came to us last year from DES. Did you have that?
That was from Fish and Game.
For Fish and Game. Is that something you could forward?
Yeah, I could report that too.
And it had to do with the water level being too low.
Ron Parent, 15 Picture Point. I put my dock in 2013. And had it designed to be above the low water, or the high water winter mark. As of yesterday, at the end of my dock, I measured 24 inches of water at the end of my dock. I had no beach at all. Now, as far as the dam or them letting out water, that dam's been operating since 1958. We have never had a problem. until 2 or 3 years ago. This will be the 3rd year in a row that that water has not been at the proper level, for whatever reason. Is it something from the diversion dam that's been taken out so the water isn't being diverted? There is a lot of water coming over that, yeah, right. I mean, and I think there's more coming in than can go out. So I don't care if you had, 5 boards in there or 6 boards or, whatever. You're not good, there's no level, it's all up and down. So I think the real problem that we have with Wilson Pond is somehow that diversion dam has to be addressed. So we can cut off some of that water so we don't get too hot. I mean, if he says there's only 1 board left, we'll have to take his word for it, because there've always been 5 boards on that dock. And I know that means nothing to anybody, but always 5 boards on that dock. And now there's only 4. So somewhere, someone stole the board. So if it's only going to put 4 boards back in, it's going to be a lot lower in the summer.
There's a half.
But right now, it's almost at the summer level.
Right.
Right, but the rebuilding of the dam.
No, I think that's all on the other side of the road.
Right, but what I'm saying though is there were some requirements from DES about the diversion dam. I remember the 60 cubic feet per minute had to come through all the time.
I
And
haven't heard of that.
300 cubic feet max or something. Remember back when I think Charlie was telling us that?
Sounds about right.
But right now,
There was something tying the lower Wilson Pond Dam, the engineered fix, into the upper, and, well, the upper didn't count because you can't control it, but the diversion dam. And I remember there was some discussion that if we kept it at 60 cubic feet per minute, or whatever it was, I remember the 60 part, that might not be enough water for Wilson Pond to keep the water quality up. So.
Is that winter or summer?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's year round,
I think also
people wanted more than 60 feet per minute in the summer, I guess. And they couldn't guarantee that with the current diversion dam.
but right
We
now,
can't shut it off completely.
right, the current conversion dam has no guts in it right now.
Right.
There's nothing there.
Right.
It's just an open flow. There's no way to close it. There's no way to open it.
Something is missing.
Slide J Ward, 16, do we have, you mentioned the 60, whatever it is, do we have any recent measurement of the water flow at the diversion dam? So we don't know whether we're getting more or less than we should have. We don't know if, when we think we got too much. We think we got more than we usually do. The issue is not so much, for me, it's not so much whether it's high or low, it's not the same every year, so you can't predict and plan.
Right.
And in the past, it has been a predictable level, in the weather, except for the year they traded all, so the damage. So I counted 5 boards, 5.5 boards the other day when I went by there. There's 1 big long one and then 4 short ones, but 4 shorter ones. But maybe I'm mad at that. I don't know why. But I certainly want to leave that 1 board in.
With the trash.
Joe talked about it. And we just want to be sure that we have exhausted all the ways we can to control the water flow. And if the diversion dam needs attention, I remember talking about this back and forth. Does Swanzey even own the diversion dam? I think it belongs to Keene or something like that.
We have rights to
It's
it.
We have rights to it.
It's in Keene, owned by Brock, and we have rights to
And there's-
operate. Yeah.
There's no way to do anything with
The
it.
only thing that can be done is it can be
Sandbag,
blocked off or
yeah.
sandbagged, and then we run the risk of flooding somewhere else, which there's been flooding in other areas like Rose Lane, and the city of Keene tried to blame us, which was absurd. I told them that. But so if we go blocking it off and somewhere else floods, we're subject to be potentially liable for that.
I mean, basically, it comes down to the fact that we're at the mercy of the Corps of Engineers and what they're releasing, which can vary during the winter. As it varies during the winter, we're going to get varying water levels, and it's going to damage property and docks and stuff like that, there's got to be a solution somewhere.
Yeah, but could you contact somebody at Army Corps of Engineers and just find out if they are in a drawdown, and maybe
I think,
that'll, maybe they're doing a seasonal drawdown and they're gonna stop, and go back to a normal flow, and maybe that'll help us get that last 4 inches out.
It's so much different from last year, that's one of the issues that.
and I think if you take a look, right now it's a resident problem, but I think in maybe 5 years, it's gonna be a town problem, because if you look at the erosion that's taking place on that beach, those rails are gonna be in the water within 3 to 5 years without a doubt, because that water comes up, and the boat activity on there in the summer, it all washes and it keeps falling in. So you're gonna, it's our problem now, but it's gonna be somebody else's problem in a few years.
My other question is, fishing game complaints, I'd be interested in what the nature of the complaint is. Is it a complaint about the summer water levels, or a complaint about the winter water levels when it's mostly ice fishing being done there? I don't think the ice fishing is damaged by the water level. I really don't.
Marcy Georgette, 17 Waters Edge Road, North Swanzey. If Fish and Game is that concerned about the water level in the pond, why are they not stocking the pond? They don't stock the pond. We've been told numerous times that they don't stock the pond because it's a warm water pond. So why all of a sudden are they involved? Right?
We haven't seen any of those complaints.
And they've never been on, I've never seen them on the lake, just doing a patrol again. Not that doesn't mean that they can't have a say, but where is this coming from all of a sudden?
So I think they had spoken to the DPW director before, and when the board adopted a policy, I think last year, making clear the chain of command and everything, and how, when the seasonal lowerings would happen, which I think is something that upon residents had asked for, so it was clearly outlined. And so Joe provided the policy to them, and the response from Jason Carrier, who's a fisheries biologist, said, unfortunately, New Hampshire Fish and Game and DPS do not see eye to eye on drawdowns. I'm surprised that New Hampshire Fish and Game was not brought in on these meetings to discuss the policy, because I've spoken to you before about our concerns with the water levels at Wilson Pond. A 30-inch drawdown is substantial for such a small and shallow pond, which reduces the available habitat for fish in the winter months, and more importantly, the available and preferred habitat for early spring spawning fish like yellow perch, pickerel, and northern pike. Hopefully the town will reconsider the depth and/or timing of the drawdowns to help protect and improve the fisheries. So what their authority over, I don't know, I can't speak to that, but that was what.
Well, it's good to hear that.
Yeah, that was really, that was
Those are concerns we have too, we want fishers to be.
and that's a concern that we brought to you all when they did the dam work in 2019, 2020, in the middle of the summer. What happened to all the fish? I mean, you brought it down to the point where they had to bring it down, I know, to get the groundwater to dissipate so they could work on the dam. Although, what did it do? From right there, you tried to have the fishing derby how many years now? And you had minimum amount of fish that are pulled out of there because, especially right after the.
Well, last year we didn't have any ice, so.
Huh?
We didn't have ice last year.
Right,
Probably
the year
real
you had the
values
ice.
this year. Probably great this year.
You know, I'm hoping that it rebounded, but, okay, so that was very kind of you to look that up and share that.
Yeah, until Joe mentioned it, I knew he had mentioned it in the past, but it kind of went in one ear and out the other, so.
Please forward that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jim George, Waters Edge Road. Back in 2019, when we took that crew that done that bridge work, we brought them up there to the good bridge.
Yep.
And we had them do some work on that. Did they actually dismantle the bridge on that?
What was the scope of work?
Well, yeah, the scope of work, because prior to them going up there, we never had a water problem.
Yeah.
We go up there, and I think we paid them $25,000. And it didn't do us any good. The water's been high every winter since then.
I think there was some
Maybe we should talk to Lee Dunham.
there was some natural blockages in there, some trees that had fallen in the channel. And maybe over time, those have rotted away or floated out. But I remember that part of the damming process up there was the natural debris that was in that channel.
So there's like a trash rack, like vertical slats that ideally, like I was mentioning, try to catch things from getting jammed up so they can be cleared out and sent downstream. So the trash rack was replaced. The walkway across so you can get from one side to the other was replaced and made safer. I think they did some concrete work, like the abutments on the edges. Other than having it cleaned out, I don't see why that.
I think they did some timber work too, didn't they? On the sides, maybe, some of the timber.
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Well, I mean, is it possible to ask Joe to go up and look at that and see what he thinks is going on?
In terms of something that we gotta do.
Yeah.
Just make sure it's where it should be, maybe.
Yeah, and, you know, used to have a guillotine on that, I heard, so the question is it there or not? And he should know, one way or another, he should know, like, we're not necessarily sure what the right answer is, but we should know the status of that emergency. Sure, you can see the before condition.
You had pictures, I think, right?
Yeah, we have some pictures, but yeah, we've
It's really bad. Definitely, you can see the big thing.
We'll jump into the public hearing. Okay. So it's a work in progress.
Well, no, it just,
Just a timeout, because we gotta do this public hearing.
Oh,
You don't have to go anywhere.
all right.
Let's be quick, hopefully. Being 6 o'clock or so. Well, pursuant to RSA 32:11, the town of Swanzey Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing at 6 p.m. on the December 6, 2023, at Whitcomb Hall, 17 Main Street, Swansea, New Hampshire, to hear testimony from the public regarding the town requesting emergency approval to expend funds during 2023 in excess of the authorized appropriation in the amount of $600,000. This request is due to expenses related to the flooding disaster that occurred beginning on July 9th, 2023. Said funds are expected to be reimbursed in part or in full from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA.
I think everyone's pretty aware of what this is a reference to. Basically, we're borrowing from our fund balance until we get reimbursed either in whole or 75% from FEMA. So we waited until the end, later in the year to see if we even really needed to. I think overall the rest of the budget's in good shape, but I don't think we'll be able to take up what we're looking at like $600,000 to $700,000 over. So, well, for that expense, not over, but so basically it's borrowing from ourselves until we get reimbursed by FEMA, which hopefully will be soon.
Anybody online?
Nope.
Garrett, anybody online with their hand raised? Or?
there's Jim Johnson and Lisa online.
Any questions on that?
Could you just, again, repeat the dollar amount that?
So we're asking for 600,000. I was also trying to wait and see if we got the paving bill, which I think sounds like it's in the mail, but it's gonna, the end total bill is gonna end up being between 600,000 and 700,000.
Thank you.
Hearing nothing else, I'll close the public hearing.
It's just a multi-step process.
No, I think this is just
All right, David Beverly, I'll make the motion.
There is. Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So this goes to DES, or Department of Revenue.
Yeah.
And you do that immediately.
Back to the game.
Well, no, I just, back in 2019, while I was going up there, we didn't have this problem.
Right.
So can't we turn around, put some time and effort and figure out why? You know why it's happening for the last 3 years? I mean, so we're just gonna tell everybody to take your docks out in the fall? That's been going on, I mean, they never did that.
Well, Michael's gonna reach out to the Corps of Engineers, and you've asked if we could ask Joe to go and take a look at it, which we'll do, and we'll take it as far as we can go. But there has been flooding, as Michael mentioned, on Rose Lane that was significantly different than what it had been before, and they tried to put the blame on us for not diverting enough water into Wilson Pond. So it's a balancing act, and it seems like it's being driven by the Corps of Engineers without notification.
So the Army Corps is dumping water, not letting anybody know.
That's our understanding. In other words, Joe doesn't get a call that in 24 hours they're going to release whatever they're going to release. It happens.
And our first snow of the year, which we didn't really get in a lot of town, Harrisville probably did get a bunch of snow out of this. And it's melting and going down to the brook and coming down here just like the spring runoff. So hopefully it'll be short-lived and we'll get back to a regular winter.
Well, let's just hope it happens before it all freezes and not shift and twist and often.
But the point really is that we will do the two things that we can do.
Right.
And if there's anything else, we will. And I agree with you, Jay. It was 5 boards and a half of wood.
I would say that, even if we're worried about, flooding on roadways and so on, there may be a way to do a minimal adjustment of the diversion dam in a way that, not without doing too much over flooding of road lane, we can do a little bit less in the Wilson Pond. And that just means having the ability to do it. It seems to me the diversion dam is there for a purpose. The purpose is to help regulate upper and lower Wilson Pond. And we just have to learn how to do it.
Yep.
But I don't know, it depends. There's no guarantee there. You can't do it.
I walked out there yesterday, and there's nothing going, I'm gonna call it south towards Wilson Pond. There's nothing except for that trash gate. There's a little, sluice, I can't say what it is. That gate that's going down towards Keene, that's up, but it's 4 feet wide, and the rest of that river frontage is like 40 feet. And it's not changing anything. It's all still going right with us. So there's definitely something, and the way it looks like it was designed, there is a cutout in the concrete where somebody slides down. You can see that, and then there's a track on top, like an old, not a track, but like a bunch of teeth, if you will, that something rolled.
A gear mechanism or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, gear mechanism.
So if there's a way to repair it and use it in a way that will help regulate the water level, then it means that we get these releases from the airport. We might be a day or two late in adjusting, but at least we get it done.
Right.
And then when it drops down, we go up there and, let more water. It may be more complicated to monitor the level of Wilson Pond, but it would make everybody happier, and it would be the property and the road.
One question I do have is, I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
Well, I was gonna say, there was something in the minutes, about people on King saying that having a diversion dam meant a lot to the health of our animals.
That's what I was saying, yeah.
Right. You want to have some water coming in. So.
Otherwise, it'd be 2 stagnant ponds, and
Yeah.
that's what keeps it flow. I was gonna ask, is there like, the company that did the work from Rabbit Hollow Road, Hazen, I think it was, or Hanson, back in 1920, was there like, did they give you a warranty? I said 19 or 20, whatever the
I missed the or part.
sorry, do they have like a guarantee or a warranty of the work that they did being, so that if we find that they took something out they should not have, that we could go back and say, hey, you gotta come back and fix this?
I think we want to be careful assuming that anything wasn't done properly, the work was done, we paid for it.
With BES involved and the engineers, they would have not, allowed it, so.
And the only other point I wanted to re-emphasize is we should have a way of monitoring the flow from time to time, whether it's going up there and putting a photo in there or having something in place that can be read. We should know, you mentioned the 60, we should know what the healthy rate is and that way we can monitor. And the other thing is, has anybody mentioned anything about water levels in upper Wood?
No.
It flows over the top of the dam. Right?
Yeah, so, I mean, but that means that it's up, it's not down. Is there any change in water levels up there?
No, there's no control over that, really.
No, that's what I'm saying, is that extra water coming in, it can only go so high, so
Right.
it's as high as it can go.
Yeah, I think so.
It's only in the summer, the trickle.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you see there's no water flowing over the top.
Right.
So,
I wanna thank you all for looking into this as much as you have and taking it seriously.
Yes, thank you.
There's a bunch of other people who aren't able to be here tonight who called me or talked to all of us about their concerns as well, so I appreciate the attention.
Did they get Joe's email? Did you get Joe's email?
Well, it was kind of summarized by the letter, so.
We just read the letter on the agenda.
Yeah, I didn't see it before the meeting, so.
You have to excuse my typo, unless you want to.
And Joe's memo is on the packet here. So
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, you know, he's doing what he's asked to do. Maybe do a little more.
Well, we'll see what we can do. One of the big problems with the diversion dam is the same thing as the airport, Keene Airport being in Swanzey, except there's a third party in Brock's. And there's quite a bit that litigation wise that would probably have, or legal wise, that would probably have to be discussed before people will sign off on anything. I don't know, did we look into Brock's ownership of it from the standpoint of us being able to?
They own the property, we have rights to maintain
The dam.
Now, Mike, was that, I saw in the minutes how they had signed off, and was that just for the work to be done on there, or was that to extend throughout?
I honestly don't remember. That was like 4 years ago, so I think it was specific to that project, but we have a good working relationship with them. But I believe that was specific to that project.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll report back.
Well, we're like, whoa, that made something.
Is that the butler? Are you gonna get under the dock?
Yeah. I'll be a big, sorry,
They're not so far above the water, I don't think you have to worry about.
I know. I'm on, you know, I'm having, okay.
Consideration of new business, new fire station design update.
We got the estimate from DPW in the middle of the day. I think it got stuck in my spam filter, so I finally got it today, and didn't seem right to wait 2 weeks to show you the plan and the numbers and get your initial.
We don't have a real good show and tell system yet. You're welcome to come up.
The old plan is very similar. Maybe I'm the one with that two one that can write down 13 million. So the task was to try to get rid of 30% of the building. And it wasn't to get rid of 30% of the cost, because that wasn't going to happen. But it was to get rid of 30% of the building, to try to keep the cost the same. That's the goal. The number that we got currently, I've got, I'm figuring is 4,698,293, 4.7 million, and then I'll up to getting 5 million for ease of discussion. So what did we change? Well, the first thing we did was we got rid of one whole bag, as you can clearly see. And what we did when we got rid of that bag was that moved the old hot zone, as it was referred to back then, was kind of dropping the hot, cold, medium zone things. So this hot zone area here, which is made up of the decon area, the laundry area, turnout gear area, all the area that would be most likely to be contaminated, would need to be kept clean, and help keep the firemen extra safe, was actually up here. And one of the problems with that original plan was that it made it so that the bays were constricted. They couldn't be expanded in the future or anything like that. So the first thing we did was got rid of the original mezzanine, moved the hot in, shortened up the bays. We knocked down the locker room. We knocked down the turnout gear. We knocked down the rest of this whole area in here. So this is a double height area. The 4.7 million number is including the add alt to put the mezzanine back. In this area here, they did a little over $100,000. The value of having the mezzanine back in place is we got rid of a lot of storage in this whole process. The other thing was that we were going to design this building so that it could be added on to later, similar to the old one, but a little bit differently. So this one's been designed so that another bay can be added quickly and easily. And it's also been added so that this roof, this flat roof here, could become a floor. And if it were to become a floor, we would, and we had the mezzanine area, we could take the mechanical room, we could put that back up high, which would be a good spot for it. Put in a stairwell, put in a simple Lula lift, which would be code required, and you could make a second floor in the future if you wanted to. A lot of municipal buildings were made supposedly to be made bigger. And when I was working with the architect, Katie Sutherland, who I can't say enough good things about the amount of work that she got done, the amount of time we gave her, which is not much. Really adamant that we really need to be able to be added on. We can't just build a whole other building in the future. We can't do anything like that. It really would have to be added on to. So, we're going to put the 100 pounds per square foot on this flat roof area and make it so you can go back up there again. As I reviewed this with Mr. Matson here, I think we both kind of agree that this is like the minimal. This is the minimum. It doesn't look like we got rid of a lot of stuff. You put it next to the old, we got rid of a lot of stuff. Everything is smaller, everything is simpler. And we went back to using some spaces for multiple uses. We were trying to avoid multiple use spaces. But we're back to using some multiple use areas. And I don't know, I think it's pretty good actually in the end. I talked to Eric a lot more. I was a little bit down the past couple of days about the whole thing. It's been kind of a difficult process. But we're talking Eric, and that's it. Feeling a lot better about the whole thing. Back to the outside. Metal structure, steel building. A lot of people wanted the steel building. Here it is. It's a building. It's the most aesthetically pleasing thing in the world. But people wanted simple, and simpler we went, and as simple as we could. It's just, it's a box. The old plan had some things that had a lot of expense in them. You wouldn't think they had a lot, but they do. The old plan had windows that were all the way to the edge. Putting windows in a corner of a building is really expensive. We got rid of that stuff. We really tried hard to find every little thing that we could do to save a couple bucks. I think there's a chance that we do a little bit in here maybe, but it's all just nibbling on the edges of that. We're not. Nothing, I'm going to say anything else right now, right?
Well, some of it is the original
project, which was a substantially larger building, was roughly the same dollars.
In every meeting we had, we told everybody that that's what's gonna happen. And you and I both know that's how it works, right? Nothing gets cheaper, and especially, you know, as of late. And, you know, per square foot, you're going per square foot, it's up there. But it's not a typical commercial building. I mean, I would equate this more to maybe not a medical building, but certainly, it's like dental office, veterinary clinic, or something like that. A lot of mechanicals. You know, Walmart, look at Walmart, Walmart's a big square. Nothing to build one of those. This is not a big square. Got a lot of interior finish, got a lot of electrical, plumbing, mechanical. 2 mechanical systems, got 2 mechanical systems, because we can't have a mechanical system taking care of the decon area, taking care of the rest of the structure. A lot to this. The breakdown, Michael said it to you. You know, I think they did a good job. I appreciate that, you know, I mean, they should do a good job. They got paid reasonably well to do this. And this is called sanitary. We have a sanity sewer runs, which I'm glad it makes it sane. But you know, the numbers are actually pretty good numbers when you break them down individually. And as per usual, when you take the individuals, it makes sense, you add them up, and you know, they grow. They grow quick, they grow big, but I looked at it a lot, and because I was really looking for, obviously, mistakes or some other opportunity, and just didn't jump out. So, yeah, I think you're right, and that's what we're gonna continue to do that. And that's why I say at some point, I think this is kind of like, this is the minimalist. It's still, that minimalist, it still would be the crown jewel of all municipal buildings by far. It's core of the structure, and something definitely to be proud of. I mean, it would be the finest work environment we've got for anybody. But when we compare this to, say, the transfer station, nuts. Are we getting 5 times the building that we're getting transfer station? Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. We certainly are. Definitely get that kind of structure.
$300 a square foot and people blanch. Well, this is 500 square foot. But it's only gonna get worse.
Right.
And the options that we have narrow.
Well, and the funny thing about this is, because when you said that number, and I always appreciate people looking at things like that, because it's, you gotta look at it and figure it out from the consensus. You know, I'm looking at this thing, and I'm going, okay, that's a fair point to make there, but, you know, if I took this thing and I said, okay, fine, this is the new gourmet kitchen, and it's bed, and we're on, like, okay, it's like a 9,000 square foot house with 6-car garage, double height. Yeah, okay. Right? So what would that be? Keep that their number.
I think it's all part of that. When it adds up.
I hope so. That'd be nice. I really wish they used a bigger font.
It's the first full-size page, so must be like page 2 up there.
Page 3, I think.
I can't see it.
Page 2 is already there.
Site work, yeah, no, you're right. It is, it's an site work. Maybe it was an individual, and they do it. Spend 1,400 people there for something to come.
800,000 altogether.
I missed that work order. Yeah, I missed that. Good catch. So we're gonna take some of that on the imported materials, maybe.
Underground parking, like Swanzey Garden.
Yeah, but just so you know, we have your.
You been in that way? I was ready. I think if you did design, I'd never see anything that big in Swans. It's like, it's not on key. I'm in there looking at it. So, we have the big consultant, fire engineer, all that.
Not only do we have it, but we have 5, 6 years in that paying.
That's right. Oh, yeah, at a lower interest.
And a much lower interest rate.
What was the first time? 4. 3, 4. The last one, we're hoping for 3.5. The last one was 4.
Yeah, depending on if you use the total cost of the bond cost, it was 3.5 or 3.5.
Oh, God, that could be bigger numbers. But,
I would say, we don't make an option for that.
Yeah, but, you know, we're having a lot of people up in that area of town too, so it'd be really nice to have a nice park facility so close.
You know, it's interesting, I had a conversation, I never thought I'd have this with the gentleman, not been a fan of this project at all, and has been very vocal about it, and, you know, he's been polite and good to talk to, and, this week he came in, talked about it again. This is the time the young people come and pay their taxes, and while they're there, they come and let me know what they think of things. And, no, seriously.
that's why we moved them up front.
Yeah, they come in, that's when they, I just left you $3,000.
I just paid you.
I just gave you $3,000, which is always kind of them. I get to see the money. It's fine, it's great. I like people come in and do that. And it's right here at the side of his mouth. He says, you know, you drive around and it feels something in the sun right now. I gotta tell you, it's me and a lot of people like me, you gotta start changing what you think about stuff. And I just look at it. All right? Keep your mind open. Think about stuff. It's different now. They want to talk about change and stuff. And those are the conversations. But you want to credit, a lot of people, change your mind. Especially in the spring, I want to think that I'm gonna put my money on change with my mind too much. It's just not about other things to change. So, I don't know. I can't even guess anymore. No idea. I thought there were people about that experience. And if I was going to get cut, many times previously, year. I mean, just from anecdotal conversations. People are, people are not quicker to tell you they support a project. And I'm not for or against this project, by the way. They just feel the need to, because I know the next speaker, they're interested in burden themselves on me. Any other questions?
At least for me, I was supposed to run. I don't suppose it, but for me, tell me.
How about some more? I was leaving something earlier.
Do you have anything? No, send it electronically so we can see some of it.
No, I think, now we have some drawings, I can bring it to at least the officer corps and give them a heads up to what it looks like, and I think for the most part, everybody's, they all understand the need, so. And they seem to support it, you know, I think the ones that don't like it are just, they're still not gonna like it, you know. Some of those just play it in gold and they still be upset about it.
They didn't have to pay for it.
Right, oh yeah, I mean, there's, you know, the people that don't like it are just, a lot of people are gonna be hard to change on that, but I think for the most part, most everybody I've spoken to, department-wide and throughout the town, seem to want it, support it, so.
I didn't really talk about the survey, so puts you in a bad spot.
No.
I kind of like to think the improvements we made in the West. Good.
Oh, yeah.
And that people kind of were more ready to do.
Yep.
I don't want to say make do, but go like, yeah, well, we gotta dress it down, we can dress it down a little. This is so much better, I mean, that's 100% improvement. And it's pretty minor, but it made a big difference. So if you guys have gone in and seen it, you know, it's tight. But just having a dedicated space for a minor amount of storage, which goes up immediately.
Yeah.
But it made a big difference, it makes a big difference.
We've been able to clean out a lot of stuff up in the town hall. Get out of that area and, make that, Mike said, made a huge difference. It's a nice dry spot, so it'll make things last a whole lot longer, sure, especially since it's here, get the mold and mildew and stuff out of there.
Washing gear, right?
Yeah, we're
on the
able
equipment,
to,
right?
we're able to wash our gear now properly and put it up, and, it's great. Yeah, I would encourage you up here, stop by anytime.
I appreciate the support of the project, too. Done the work for the project, obviously.
Thank you.
Jim, do you have a question?
No?
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Eric.
Good night. 2024 budget.
So it's aspirational again, that I have a little bit more for you, which I don't, just got a couple of minor and general assistance, but it's given until the end, so I do not have those, we'll have those for, next meeting. So the main discussion item, again, don't have to decide on tonight either, but, we usually until December to start talking about what we want to do with cost of living, various increases, but this, I'm going to hear about kind of what we've done over the last few years. Some of which was how I remembered, some of which different, but that's a good thing about looking back, is you refresh your memory, so that's good. So we had been at a pretty steady 4% for a few years total between cost of living and merit. And then we had been following also Social Security, inflation factor, when it was more convenient and it got really high and inconvenient, we did deviate more, which I totally understood and supported. But where that's at a 3.2 factor instead of the 8.4 and 5.9 it was the last couple of years. I'd like to either try to get back to that or even go a little bit above it, whereas we went significantly under it, at least last year. So throwing that out there as a possible discussion for up to 6% with the merit, which will vary depending on the employee. I also threw out there, it kind of came up a little bit as part of the personnel policy update about longevity pay that we used to do, which we don't do. I understand why we don't do it, and I don't think it's worth kind of discussing with the board at this point going back to that. But like I said, I know we did away with it for, I think, good reasons, because we want to focus on rewarding the merit and focusing on rewarding merit. But I did put in here, and it could be maybe pick one and not the other, or do a lesser amount for one and not the other. But inflation, if we pay more because inflation's high, inflation is going to continue to be high. It's kind of a self-fulfilling kind of issue. If everyone increases pay, prices can increase. So I thought maybe a potential of a end-of-year retention payment bonus, whatever you want to call it. As we talked about mainly with police, but also in other positions, sign-on bonuses, and every time we talked about those for municipal jobs, they're getting fairly common, and that's great for new people, but at some point people that haven't jumped for some of those different opportunities might be a way for a relatively small amount of money you could show, kind of get the benefit of the longevity by a nice letter with a little bit of money from the Selectmen banking folks for sticking with us through the years, without necessarily adding to the base pay, which then builds and impacts the other benefits and retirement. So kind of two pieces of that, somewhat related, somewhat different. You guys, that sounds good.
I've always been in favor of that.
Right.
Instead of just up in the steps.
Right.
I was interested to see the county's letter with
Must be
2.5
honest,
COLA
I
and
scanned
1.5
that.
merit.
Is that what they're doing?
I believe so. 2.5. And I think if we maybe did something like that, and then with maybe some annual bonuses or something that not basically keep raising it to the point that the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It doesn't have a happy ending.
Everything just keeps going up that way.
But I'm just wondering.
No, I'm just curious if you'd be able to quantify what the, what is called attention.
I'm sorry.
Called attention or year end.
Yeah, just some type of
If you could quantify
stipend
that amount.
bonus.
So, and this is just, I'll say somewhat flux, but I thought maybe 500 for full-time, 250 for part-time, and 100 for like the on-call, and, you know, maybe some of the seasonals, and that would come roughly, just quick numbers, for like 25,000. Just those either way, but once you start taking taxes out, 500 even becomes, you know, like 350, and so, but if you want to do a lower amount, that's fine too. That was what I just kind of had drawn up as a possible starting point.
If you could plug in the numbers just so we can see between the COLA, the merit, and the bonus, I think we could make a decision.
Okay. So we're thinking, I'd like to stick with the 2.5 for merit, so then a 1.5 for COLA.
COLA.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's good. Those numbers for next meeting. Consensus.
Except for the select board, they don't get a merit.
Oh, definitely don't. Just look at the taxes this year.
All right, 2024 warrant.
Also aspirational, so I'll review that next meeting.
I
The
didn't see it.
main, yeah, you didn't say it, so. The main kind of, you know, you guys still have a little more time between now and the budget hearing, but the main, kind of action item is by the end of the year, I need to know what, bonds we're doing. So we have to advertise the bond hearing before the end of the year, so I know, one of the things CIP recommended was the fire engine, so we're doing the station, I don't know if you want to go, so you don't have to tell me now, but that's kind of what I speculated, so, okay.
Even though pushing it off means 2 years, because if it's on a 2025 warrant, it's not
Don't
2026.
yeah. I totally understand that, though. So, okay, very good. That's what I thought.
Third quarter financial analysis.
Other than
Looked
the
at
disaster,
briefly.
we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah. Anything further on that? Heat pump for fire station 2.
So that was, what the board had asked for that as part of the town hall heat pump project, which the heads are in. I think the electrician was planning to come back, I believe, next week, so we're gonna have those operational by the end of the year. But we're going to add an additional, head downstairs, which I understand that would be the end of our electrical capacity at this time was, just over $7,800.
What makes up the $7,800? What, are we adding another condensing unit?
Yes.
We are?
I believe so. It's under here, first item is single zone hyperheat condenser, so that's why I'm saying yes, but
Couldn't pull it off of one of the others? In other words, we couldn't just add a head? That's not that big a space.
I do not know. I cannot speak intelligently on that.
How many heads did we put in altogether?
I will have to check that.
do.
We have this memo, which had the announcement, not didn't have the additional.
It didn't.
You wanna do a not to exceed and just see if you can get it?
I assume it, I mean, he worked in that field, so I assume that it could have been done without that. Yeah, if we don't get it approved this week, we're gonna miss the window of the.
All right, so I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Personnel policy adoption effective January 1st.
So I outlined in here on 41, kind of three, say, hanging chads. So we reviewed it with the department heads, and then had them discuss it with their employees. And, I took it out to town hall as well. So basically, the three items where we got some pushback are, we talked about changing the calculation of overtime from 40 hours worked, 40 total hours. So right now, if you work, say, 50 hours Monday through Thursday, and then you take a vacation day on Friday, that counts towards overtime. We suggested potentially changing it. Not necessarily surprising that we got some pushback on that. One of the possibilities was brought up, hey, if we're plowing snow 3 days straight, and if people want to take a day off, we don't want to penalize them, and then are they going to work when they maybe shouldn't be working, and so I think for the relatively limited value, I would say let's just scrap it.
So how did that go again? They work 50 hours in 40 days, they don't work on
So
Friday.
in one week.
I'm sorry, 50 hours in 4 days, they don't work on Friday.
So if you use vacation, the vacation time basically wouldn't count towards. Right.
Oh, that Friday.
Right.
Why wouldn't they just take Friday off? Why is it vacation?
So they don't want to say all those hours.
Which hours, the 8 hours?
Right. So if they just took the time off, then they would lose out on the overtime.
Well, they'd still have 10 hours of overtime. So they want that 8, they want that 8 to be time and a half
Correct, that's our current policy.
with a retention bonus?
Well, that's a separate discussion. I don't know how, again, I don't think it's,
Well, we
I understand the premise, which is why
we run into that with some of the staff because of night meetings and all of that, so they end up taking a day. So when they were taking that day, that was actually a vacation day, and they were getting time and a half.
well, you're kind of thinking, so town hall, we don't,
So we're just talking hours. not talking
Yeah,
salary.
it's mainly town, or it's mainly DPW employees, so the main departments that town hall, we can try to modify schedules if at all possible.
How does holidays fit into it? They work
Same
with,
way.
okay, so if they work 4 10s, or 4 12s after a holiday, they would have the 8 hours holiday be time and a half.
Correct.
No, I don't think any place does that. I
Same,
don't know where I've worked.
so it would count towards, yeah, I'm sorry, so it would count towards.
It would count toward their 40,
It wouldn't be, yeah, no,
unless the holiday happened on Friday.
if they, yeah, that's probably a better example. So say it's a five-day week, they work 4 days and then they have the holiday on Friday.
Yeah.
If they work 4 hours on Saturday, that would be overtime. Versus if we change the policy, that would be straight time until they work, and then if they work 10 hours, it would get over the 8, so they'd get,
Well, on a Saturday, it'd be overtime anyway.
not if we change the policy, it would be only hours worked, so that's actually better example probably. So if we're asking them, say, to come in on Saturday, if they had a holiday that week, it would be straight time.
And if they worked 48 hours already,
If they, well, in that example, they worked 32 and they had a holiday, they had 8 holiday hours.
oh, 4/10, or 4/12.
Well, I
4/12.
get confused with 4/12s. Who's working, because no one works. All right, so the 4/12s, is there a holiday in there?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, just somehow they get 50 hours.
It's
Or
not that the
they
holiday-
get in, they work 42 hours, they get 2 hours of overtime pay, and then they have an 8-hour holiday.
The
So then they
holiday-
have 10 hours of overtime.
It's whether it's not whether the holiday hours are overtime, it's whether they count towards overtime for the total hours. Clearly, I'm not explaining. Think of the, all right, 4 days, they work 32 hours, and then there's a holiday on Friday. If
And
they
I
get
got to
called-
40.
Yeah,
They get
so
called
they're at
in.
40 total, they get called in and work 8 hours on Saturday.
That should
Whether
be
that
overtime.
is overtime or straight time. Like, if we
That should
change
be
it-
overtime, and I think it would be.
No, that, if we changed it how we were talking about, it would be straight time until
But
they
if
got
they take,
over 40
how about if they
hours.
take Monday off for a sick day,
They take Monday off and then.
3
work
days, get the holiday.
Sick time and a holiday, so then they'd have to work 16 other hours to get to overtime.
I think the holiday should count, but the sick time maybe not, for the day off. Holiday they don't control.
No vacation.
They control that. Unless they don't, because they can't take a vacation day when they're plowing.
Right. I think it's a relatively small amount of money. I would ask that you just leave it as it is.
That's why you make the big bucks. You and Ed.
Great. Thank you. I think. So the next one, yeah, also about, this is public works, so the proposed change was, well, I think this is consistent, but, that public works employees are restricted from taking vacation leave more than 8 consecutive hours, basically during filing season, November 15th, April 15th, unless approved by the board of selectmen. DPW director had asked that that be under his approval, basically, this week, I know it's not gonna snow.
Right.
If someone wants to take 2 days off, do I need to wait for the board meeting? I do think there's benefit to some collaboration with it, here maybe with me, just so that we'll make sure there's accommodations with that.
Yeah, you should have that flexibility, I think.
And then the real sticky look at the probationary period. So currently our policy is 12 months for police and fire, 6 months for everyone else. The board's preference was 12 months for all. Staff remains divided, some, 12 months is too long, some think a year is important because of the seasonal aspect of some jobs. Possible compromises are just keep as is to make it kind of more subject to department head's discretion. Stick with 12 months, that's what we feel strongly about. Try to look back at the other policies that I've been using as kind of examples. It does seem like most of them are 6, or 6 and 12, like how we had. Because the police and fire really, it's really about if it's a police officer getting through the academy, which if they haven't done, is even hard to complete in 12, depending on the time.
That could be 18 months.
Right, and then the fire, it's the fire and EMT again, if they're doing it part-time, depending on the class schedules, can be challenging. Public work, sometimes the requirement is a CDL, which again, also is increasingly
So should the department head have the flexibility on that also?
Yeah.
Have
I
six
think-
and
I think that
extend
would
it
be
as
a-
necessary?
I think that would be a good compromise.
If they're extending, there's gotta be something going on.
Which gives them the feedback in the first 6 months that they're looking for.
So your comment that it really isn't necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of a mindset thing, because all municipal employees, at least legally, are at will, in New Hampshire, so there's not like not a for cause state for most of our positions, so, it's really a mindset that they're on probation. I think part of the idea is like, you wanna give them some time to see if they're working out before you get them enrolled in benefits. Like I know previously, like I know this, telling me, a lot of times you didn't get any benefits for 90 days because they wanted to see if you were gonna stick, or they got you enrolled in health insurance and retirement and all that. Nowadays, people don't want to go 3 months without health insurance for obvious reasons. Right now, we don't start retirement until 6 months. So it's kind of a rolling thing now, but again, nowadays, people don't want to wait 6 months or a year to take time off, which is our current policy, which you approve changing kind of regardless of this. So that's another option, it's just, I know, again, it's more the mindset. On probation, there's less of maybe an expectation that, or more of an expectation that it could be terminated. But I think maybe keeping it with the department head discretion based on position and duty requirements, I think probably is a good compromise.
Works for me.
Thank goodness.
Would you like to make that?
Quick, make that motion before I keel over.
No, I'm sorry, point of order.
Don't stand in the way of
No,
this.
no, the second one you went through so fast, I was still typing and I didn't get here. After you discussed the overtime, what was the second issue?
It was about DPW taking vacation during the winter.
Oh, vacation during the okay, and that was agreed on.
Right, under town administrative.
Thank you, sorry.
But not during the summer, like,
In summer, they have to work, No, in that department, we have a great crew that if it's snowing, they're not going anywhere anyway. Definitely in the summer, they're really very, very available and very diligent, so I think it's a good adjustment to recognize that they really are committed, so. Quick, make a motion.
what do you want?
Motion to approve your suggestions
As amended.
as amended.
Effective January 1, 2024.
So moved. Second. Anything further? All in favor? Aye.
Tough one, Mike.
Glad I survived it.
Any administrative update or correspondence? Any?
Just under correspondence, I just add, it was in the, I think it was only in the packet, version of the packet today, but, 71,768 from DOT for bridge aid. So we had a public hearing for that in the road aid. That we talked about maybe last meeting, 2 meetings ago. So that's, between the two, that's a decent amount of money, so greatly appreciate it.
And I saw the, in the revenue report, the rooms and meals, is
That was, yeah.
that a good number?
Yeah, significantly higher than last year and then projected, so yeah, that came in higher, so.
No non-publics?
On this side.
Any upcoming agenda items?
Just a note of the public hearings for next week.
Anything further? Another bite of the apple? Yes, Jim?
Please don't ask about the personnel policy.
Does the town have any more money?
Yes, we have lots of money.
Well, no, we go to the other with the town, they put the weed stuff on the town hall. And we're all up there, and the shutters are falling off.
Uh-oh.
Can we go, we got a couple of
At least
bucks.
that one is all busted up.
Could we ask Portland if they could do something?
Can we go to Grange, Hall, take the fuel off to there and run them over?
Is Jane still on?
You're lucky. Yeah, well, good point. Thank you.
And one more thing, where regards to that 17 water, the columns.
We just did those.
You fixed the columns?
I think so, didn't we? Was that 10 years ago?
We made holes in them to check them, but I don't know if they were ever replaced.
Well, they're not falling down.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's legally not able to be off until the meeting ends, so.
If we can get the fire station out of the basement, the plan is actually.
We decided that was information.
Oh,
If we can get the fire station out of the basement, we're hopefully gonna be doing something with town hall that may change that look of the front a little bit too. So. Right.
Bill, do you have columns on your new house? Do you have a good column guy?
Yet, it's operative yet.
columns, not the ones I wanted.
You should arrange to have an extra shutter. Delivered, right?
Oh, I don't do shutters. But yeah, we can make that happen. I do have a bunch at home.
He has a steel
But when you
security.
make your offer on my house and we sign the agreement, we'll convey one set of shutters to the town hall.
Actually, yeah, your old house has shutters, doesn't it?
That's, well, it doesn't have a.
You were looking to upsize, weren't you?
Yeah.
Not that much.
Bill has a garage full of shutters.
Perfect.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Are we meeting next week?